Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I can't reach. How long arms do they think I've got? It's like a trained gorilla over here. I don't know. Right. First of all, let me draw your attention to the fire evacuation procedures. There are no fire alarms scheduled for this evening. Therefore, if the fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the building immediately. Fire exits located at the rear and side of this room. Simply go downstairs and meet in War Memorial Park. There are no fire evacuations expected, so if you hear it, the bell, it's a real one. Secondly, just to advise everyone that the meeting is being webcast. And then to receive apologies for our absence, we have one apology from Councillor Isaac. I'm going to take the member and public participation along with the items, and to enable us to do that in the most effective way, I'm going to reorder the agenda such that I will take item 13 first, the top of the town, as I understand the majority of the speakers wish to speak on that point. And then I note that Councillor Parker wishes to speak on the item which isn't on the agenda, which is the urgent item, but I'll introduce it at that point, and then we'll go through in that way. Before we get to that, can we just confirm the minutes of the previous meeting, members? Are you happy to do that? I'll sign those later on. There are no referrals from full council or from other committees, and no petitions. And so we can go straight to item 13, the top of the town Basingstoke concept master plan, which is a vision for the future. And I have a number of speakers who wish to speak on this. In fact, Councillor Parker seems to be having 3 goes at doing it. I'm going to start, if I may, with Mr. Fox, Timothy Fox, who I think also wishes to speak. I don't know, are you intending to speak twice or just...
I would like to, if I may.
No, you can.
I wanted to speak, but she's unwell.
That's okay. I'm going to, first of all, please have a seat. I'm going to ask Councillor Jayawardena to introduce the item, and then we will have your intervention. I'm not going to stick strictly to the 2 minutes, but I could ask you to be succinct when we get to that particular point, and that it's not really so much for you, it applies much more to the councillors who are here, and get them to be succinct. Councillor Jayawardena.
Thank you, Leader. Basingstoke's town centre belongs to all of North Hampshire. It's where residents from across the borough and beyond meet, eat, shop and more. If we're committed to boosting Basingstoke's historic heart, no initiative should be off the table. Therefore, it is critical that the Council takes the lead in the development of a clear and aspirational vision to guide the long-term development of the top of the town in a coherent manner. We can then use this vision to strongly promote the place and its businesses, to shape future development and to guide Council policies in the future. I believe that this concept is right in proposing a vision that the top of the town will become a more vibrant destination for the town, with a mix of shops, cafes and activities within its attractive historic streets and spaces. A supplementary report has been made available to Cabinet this evening, detailing the results of the public consultation. 77% of respondents support or strongly support the vision. I believe that this vision is a strong way forward to ensure that the top of the town remains an integral part of the town centre, and therefore I move the recommendation.
Thank you very much. Mr. Fox, you have 2 and a bit-ish sort of minutes.
I'd like to start by saying that I fully support the concept of a revamped top of town, which builds on the town's culture and heritage and is based on good architecture. However, for me, a decked car park or a multi-storey car park in Southern Road does not fit this vision. It is inappropriate. And the reasons are spelled out clearly in the response to to the consultation. It's all in that paper, so I won't go into those. But I would like to point out the responses to the question about the multi-storey car park in Southern Road. The people who support or strongly support, the supporters of it, are 41%, which is the lowest of any of the questions in the whole consultation, far lower, in fact, than any of the other figures. And 41% is well under half of the respondents actually do not support the multi-storey car park in Southern Road. And the other figure, the people who object or strongly object, is 33%, again, far higher than the objectors to any of the other questions. So a third of the respondents object to a multi-storey car park in Southern Road. Now, point 5.3 in the document says that the concerns are acknowledged, but I think more is needed. The concerns cannot be addressed through the careful and sensitive design, which is mentioned in the same point. A multi-storey car park is a multi-storey car park, and that's what's being objected to by these people, and I think those objections must be heeded. I appreciate that the car parking is needed, but it seems to me that either a well-designed, attractive, tree-lined surface car park in the current position, or car parking away from the residential area, perhaps a deck car park on the site of the current civic offices car park, would be more appropriate. In summary, I feel that a multi-storey car park in Southern Road would be inappropriate to the revamp, which, other than that, is very classy. And I repeat that the objections, the 33% objections, must be heeded.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Did you wish to then add on your second?
Could I?
Yes.
It's actually a completely different point that my wife wished to make.
Well, we'll try and take them together, so carry straight on.
Okay. She says, the improving of the top of the town is a laudable idea. However, I do have concerns. The concept of new road having small shops sounds promising, but how will you control what shops are there? Or will we end up with a hodgepodge which bears no resemblance to the current intention? Winchester Street, Marketplace and London Street are currently already a hodgepodge of pubs, betting shops and other establishments which are at best untidy and at worst look truly awful. You would like, you say, over time to make Marketplace home to cafes and restaurants, but that's exactly what was said before, that the top of town would be like a French cafe area. Surely, to make this vision work, you would have to address the nature of the businesses of the current occupants of the area. Do you have plans to tackle that? Will you sacrifice the top of town nighttime economy to make the area less of a drinking alley? Will you get rid of the betting shops? Will you ensure that the types of businesses in the area are compatible with your vision? Because if you don't, how will you attract people to the area? Why would they want to spend an evening here? What could possibly be the attraction of watching youngsters get drunk on a weekend, or the place looking like a ghost town during the week? The current plan has not been thought through in terms of integration. It doesn't address how you change the nature of an area. It imposes certain possible improvements by just dropping them in place without much attention to the whole. Unless Winchester Street, Marketplace and London Street are radically altered in terms of who occupies the building, then this plan, I fear, will fail. Let's have you.
Do you want to respond? Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. And to deal with the second point first, if I may, the land at the top of the town that is available for development on New Road to create potentially more retail opportunities is part of a gradual development and certainly wouldn't be happening overnight. It's important that we do take, as you rightly reference, or indeed your wife rightly references, the whole of the top of the town as one in terms of policy development. And that's why this concept is the beginning of work that links into planning and licensing policies and wider policies for the town as a whole. It's right that we have a mix of shops, bars, cafes and other uses at the top of the town, and that's why we're setting out our stall now. Clearly the change can't come overnight, but what I want to see, what I believe this administration wants to see, is an appropriate mix which will include the nighttime economy, but also should include much more uses for daytime economy, if I can use that turn of phrase, but also for a wide range of ages. And I think that's very, very important. To deal with the previous point around the Southern Road proposals, you're right to reference the percentages in the report. As you say, 33% of people objected. That does mean that, as you rightly said, 41% were in favour, but there is a large number that have indicated no preference. A minority, therefore, did object to the proposal. That said, the development opportunities open to the council and indeed to our town for the top of the town are limited. In taking forward some development on New Road, which I referenced earlier in terms of creating a proper mix, we are going to lose car parking. Basingstoke is a town made for the car, and this administration is unashamedly pro-car, wants to ensure that people can enter our town, buy their own personal vehicle, shop as and when they wish, and then leave for home. We must ensure, in line with council policy, which I believe is absolutely right, the overall quantum of car parking remains broadly unchanged, or indeed, in my own personal view, as we ensure greater economic growth for the town, we increase car parking to deal with additional need. If we're developing existing surface car parks, a new surface car park on the site of the Southern Road car park isn't going to deal with that capacity. Therefore, a multi-storey car park has been proposed as an option, but it is an option at this stage, and as I said, regarding development on the road, it's all part of phases that are yet to come. There are other options, as has been received in the public consultation, as you've made tonight, and those are all to be considered as part of the work. The important thing, I believe, is that we're setting out our stall, that the top of the town is not forgotten. It is a place that we want to take forward. We want to ensure that it has vitality, and that's what this concept does.
You can ask, well, actually, in your case, you can ask two questions, if you like, since you have two people on either point.
On the multi-storey car park, if it were to go ahead, how would you control the size of it in relation to the church on one side, the retirement homes, nice new retirement homes on another side, your nice revamped area on New Road, and the residential conservation area? How would you control the look of it and the size of it compared with those elements of the town, established elements of the town around it?
Thank you for the question. You're quite right, we would need to control the size of it. This is not to be a skyscraper car park. That's certainly not even my intention in putting forward this concept forward. Clearly, the plans for such a car park haven't been worked up yet. We're at a very early stage. But if one was to look at the skyline of that side of New Road, it does gradually grow from this end of New Road through to the offices at the far end of New Road and the church. And therefore it would have to be in keeping with that skyline. In addition, the frontage to both sides, or to all sides in fact, of the car park would need to be in keeping with the character of the area. And I certainly would believe that that would be the right thing to do. I certainly wouldn't want to be proposing any development that was ugly, that wasn't in keeping with our area, and basically brought Basingstoke down. This is about bringing Basingstoke up.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Buck. Next then we have Councillor James. Good evening.
Thank you, Leader. I don't need to talk much about the heritage. I think that's been covered by lots of comments you've received. The challenge of building an authentic Victorian-style multi-storey car park is clearly a very big challenge. I want to talk about the lunacy of the idea. We know most people prefer service-level parking. That's why out-of-town stores have service-level parking. We also know people only use multi-stories when they're very convenient, literally on top of the shops they want to visit. We know that Southern Road is primarily used by business permit holders. It's the least preferred location for shoppers. How anyone can conclude that building the least favoured type of car park in the least popular location will draw people to the top of town is beyond me. It will clearly do the absolute opposite. The Deputy Leader is fast gaining the reputation as Cabinet Member with responsibility for silly decisions, and I know why. He spent months talking to businesses, hiring church halls and coffee shops, and then denies residents a meaningful consultation. Decision 914, going to public consultation, was taken by him on the 21st of February, and the consultation ended on the 7th of March. If agreed tonight, the minor decisions, and and of course we may also disagree on what a minor decision is, will be left to a portfolio holder from Bramley who wants to be elsewhere in 2015, with an inevitable battle for every planning application. I would ask tonight that you put forward the wholly supported quick wins and can-dos, and put off the longer term, the more ambitious, and in my view currently flawed projects, further debate, discussion and engagement with the people who know the area best, the people who live there.
Well, thank you for all that oration. Festival Place, I hasten to add, has a very popular and successful multi-storey car park, and many people choose to use that. Now, I don't dispute for 1 minute that some people prefer surface car parks. That's, of course, a matter of personal choice. But as we choose to develop, if that's what we do in the future, as that's what's set out in this concept, the existing surface level car parking in the yards that are on the inside, if I can say that, of New Road, that car parking has to be moved somewhere. And whether that's to Southern Road or another site, as many people have suggested in the consultation, remains to be seen. But the important thing, I believe, is that we're establishing a principle that that's what we will have to do if we take the decision that I believe is the right one, that we want to create more opportunities for the historic part of the town to grow its own economy. Also, it's important to say that there won't be an absence entirely of surface car parking. There will still be some surface car parking available. For example, Joyce's Yard will still be there. There will be some, in my view, it's right to have some on-street bayed car parking on New Road. Those options are still available. So it's not a case of no surface car parking. It's a case of saying that multi-stories have worked elsewhere in the town, and as part of a new mix, though perhaps a different balance, we can still provide the amount of car parking needed while ensuring that the top of the town can grow.
Supplementary?
Well, I think I'll just, a point of clarification, I said that multi-stories were popular in terms of convenience when literally they're on top of the shops you want to go to. So of course, if you've got a choice of parking in a multi-story car park in Southern Road or a multi-storey car park in Festival Place, I would suggest the vast majority of shoppers will use the multi-storey in Festival Place because that's where the bulk of their shopping is going to happen. They're not likely to want to park in Southern Road, walk all the way down the hill to Festival Place, do their shopping and then carry the shopping back up the hill to Southern Road. So I think there's a flaw, and I just think that we're looking at killing the top of town. The question I would like to put to you is, we know this is a long-term ambition, it's a long-term vision. It's we've had the idea of this multi-storey car parks around for 12 years and no one's ever come up with a viable scheme. And we've been through 2 different administrations, 3 different prime ministers, 2 recessions and a boom. And nobody's come up with a scheme as yet. You put it back in the mix today in a rush. Why? Why don't we go away and have a look at it and spend a bit more time getting it right so we don't have the wars of planning applications? Why has it got to be done tonight?
Well, first of all, Councillor James demonstrates what's wrong with the top of the town, and which is why we're taking the action we're proposing. He talks about everyone parking at the top and walking down through the top of the town to Festival Place. That's exactly what we've got to change. We've got to ensure that people park at the top of the town and want to use the top of the town. Now, if we take the action we're proposing, we're not making any decisions tonight on exactly what form that takes, but we're setting a direction of travel. And there'll be many people that, if the proposals come off in terms of, for example, 2-way working of New Road and the surrounds, people will often find that it's far easier to get to the top of the town. That provides better choice for the people of this borough. It provides more opportunities for the top of the town itself to thrive. It provides more opportunities for retailers to come into the top of the town and recognise that there is footfall that is there that they can tap, and it ensures that the top of the town doesn't die. If we just keep putting off these difficult decisions, we will allow the top of the town to die. That is not something I want to happen, and I really hope that other members don't want that to happen either.
Mr. James? Right, we have the first of his multiple appearances by Councillor Barker. I don't know if you wish to take all 3 of them as one, or whether you want to do one and then stop and do another one. I leave it up to you, really, but if you could indicate which you'd like to do.
Thank you, Chair. Is there any other speakers on the paper?
Yes, there is actually. Councillor Harvey, I'm sure he wouldn't mind waiting while you carried on for some length of time.
What I would perhaps like to suggest, sorry, the echo. What I'd perhaps like to suggest is that I speak on or read the words of the residents who have asked me to do so on their behalf tonight, then give way to Councillor Harvey and then come back, if only to sort of break the boredom or add some excitement to the proceedings.
Please do.
Thank you, Chair. My first words are on behalf of Mrs. Hannah Williams, a resident in Crosby Hill. As a resident of Crosby Hill for 40 years, I know the historic part of the town well. I am very concerned about the way taxpayers' money has been spent in recent years to bring about so-called improvements to the top of town. 10 years ago, we paid consultants to present us with a vision of how this area should look, and now in 2014, we have engaged consultants again to tell us more or less the same thing. Many people I know would happily settle for more practical changes, e.g., reduce the business rates for family-run businesses. Since the first vision, we have lost more than we have gained. We have lost the family-run pie shop and the fresh fish shop and several small tea places, but we have gained a cluster of 5 betting shops. The maintenance of the 3 major works of art and the alleyways leading into London Street and Winchester Street are a disgrace. The mother and child statue in front of the United Reformed Church is surrounded by broken flagstones and with cigarette ends in the bowl of the statue. Yet tidying this up is not included in the list of improvements. Albert Walk is positively Dickensian. The 6 by 5 foot advertising boards left up by estate agencies, not for months but for years, shout out at you this part of the town is half empty. Festival Place is so much better at camouflaging its empty premises. The vision as presented by Urban Initiatives is very persuasive and well written, but the priorities are all wrong. Before we start talking about more shops in the central car park and building a multi-storey car park which will block the view of the Temple Moor Church, All Saints, we need to concentrate on some of the mistakes made since the previous vision. Common sense must prevail, and we must not be bewitched by charming young men from London.
I'm leaving the last comment to one side. Would you like to respond?
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Parker. 10 years ago, a vision was created and nothing happened. And it's right that we take the decision now to, as we have done, to commission a new concept for the top of the town and to put some real weight behind it to make it happen. What we can't allow is for another 10 years to pass by and for nothing to happen because we can't take a difficult decision around what sort of place we want the top of the town to be. That's why we're putting forward this concept. It's not locking anything down. Indeed, all opportunities are on the table. In fact, I said in my opening remarks, no initiative should be off the table. In terms of the comments around, for example, betting shops and mix of premises, as I said earlier this evening, I want to see a proper mix of bars, shops, restaurants and other uses at the top of the town. In terms of the quantum of any one of those, I'm not a professional to judge that, but what I would say is that we've employed an award-winning agency here to actually look at how we can overcome the barriers, the hurdles that have existed that have created a preference in our top of the town for certain types of shops. Now, I know a lot of people want to see more independent shops, more specialist shops, and to your residents' contribution, the issue about business rates is an interesting one. Perhaps that's something we could look at, but equally we're not in control of it entirely, because rents are not within our control here. It's privately owned, and the market does lead its own conclusion in terms of who's willing to pay for the shops that are there. And if we are going to get the right shops, the right mix of shops to the top of the town, what's ultimately needed is footfall. We need to boost the footfall to the top of the town. To do that, we need a critical mass of shops. To do that, we need to maintain or increase the quantum of car parking, and that's what this proposes to do. In closing, my last comment is around the cleanliness of the area. We've actually spent a considerable amount of money recently to improve the cleanliness of the area. We've done a deep clean to remove the chewing gum, for instance. There's more to do. No question about that. Completely agree. We need to do more. We need to ensure that the top of the town is brought up to the right standard. And again, that's what this concept sets out to do.
I don't know if you wish to respond as Ms. Williams, or whether you would like to transform yourself into Mrs. Sharples.
Chair, I'd like just to say that Mrs. Hannah Williams was very sad that she couldn't attend tonight and speak. And if she had, it would have been more eloquently than I read the words out. And she certainly, no doubt, I think, would have had a supplementary or two, but I won't presume to ask any on her behalf. Thank you.
Please continue.
Thank you, Chair. My second words are spoken on behalf of Rosemary Sharples, a resident of New Road. Bearing in mind the height of the building to the back of us and the comment on page 53, para 3, development would hide the unsightly rear to Sun Alliance House. I am wondering how high any development would be. Please stress that the residents would not like anything higher than 2 stories to match the height of their homes. Also, if it is decided that our homes are to stay after all, please impress on the committee that we would like to be taken out of the development area. Any development would necessarily have to ensure that the quality of life of the existing residents would not be affected. Please can this be stated in any policy document produced in the future? If there is a reaction of no to this request, can we please know why it is being said?
Thank you for those remarks as well. In respect of Central Car Park and surrounds, it's far too early to set out any case in that we are simply setting a direction of travel that we believe Central Car Park is a potential development site. In terms of the height, for example, that's the subject of much work that's yet to be done, but there are clearly many challenges with levels which could account for some of that to be dealt with very easily in terms of hiding Sunlight's house, but also in terms of the impact on residents. Again, the levels could well assist with that, but frankly I'm unable to come to a view at this point because this is simply a concept. This is simply setting out a direction of travel, and any such proposal will obviously go through the ordinary processes of this council, as it has been in the past, and as it should do in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. We'll move then on to Councillor Harvey before we come back to you. Thanks. Good evening.
Good evening. I was going to start by saying I endorse both my colleagues. I'll wait for Councillor Parker's comments, but I'm sure I endorse them. But I wholeheartedly support all that's been said so far this evening. What I wanted to raise with Cabinet was the figures and the issues that came out of performance panel last week, because I think they're quite relevant and quite important in relation to the paper coming forward this evening. The latest figures presented to the performance panel last week show that the top of town vacancy rate is at its highest level for the last 5 years. It's running at 10%. Well, that 10% is a figure that is higher than the national large and small town average, but it's understood that all of those currently are empty units in private sector ownership, which reflects the complexity of the issues that are being dealt with here, but also the serious need to address them, because we can't afford to have a 10% vacancy rate in that context at all in the top of town, and it does need to be addressed by this very strategy. We also know that the introduction of the powers from local authorities to reduce business rates of any local ratepayer, including businesses in the top of town, this council hasn't used those powers. That has not been part of this agenda, it has not been part of the consideration thus far. Now, in regard to supporting small businesses in the top of town, considering the issues that many are facing, and in the conversations with many traders, it is something we think needs to be taken very, very seriously, and we would encourage the Cabinet to seriously consider it as part of this strategy. The performance panel also showed that the town centre council and car parks, their usage has dropped off significantly in the last 12 months. In Q3 of this year, total parking was down 25,000 less than the same time last year. There is something quite concerning happening here, and the trend was identified by the performance panel, and they rightly highlighted it as something that needed to be addressed. Now, the town centre plan is critical, it is strategic, and it's good to see a strategic plan. The issue is it kind of repeats many of the same ideas that were being thrown around all those years ago. Here we go again, it's like Groundhog Day. Now, it's taken you 8 years to get to this point. 8 years to bring forward a strategy when you had good ideas that had significant community support before. The issue going forward is that you need to deliver tangible results that do have community support. And as you heard this evening, there is considerable concern about the multi-storey car park as just one example of a whole list of things that the community are genuinely concerned about, and their elected representatives have been here this evening expressing their views as the ward councillors. And they do need to be taken on board and not simply brushed away. So the issue really here is, while the report may have significant parts of it that are really laudable and that people can rally around and support, there are elements of it that obviously are controversial, and there are elements of it that need to be carefully thought through. You can't just leave it to the planning process, and you cannot just leave it to a future unless you address the issues carefully and with respect to what the community is telling you now. Then it really does leave everything in the air, and we're back again to where we will be in 5 years' time, 4 years' time, 3 years' time, with a half-baked strategy. And that's the last thing we want. We don't want to be here, and we want something to happen that's tangible and that's real. So really, there's an awful lot on your plate here, and I guess the proof is going to be in the eating. I don't know how you're going to respond to those issues, because at the moment, you haven't.
Well, thank you, Councillor Harvey. Your use of figures makes my case, I would argue, in talking about the vacancy rate and talking about car park usage. That just demonstrates why we've got to take a decision to really transform the top of the town. Now, by the by, I'm trying to recall from memory that actually I believe that the average vacancy rate is 14%, and so we're lower than that. But that's a by the by point. The point is that 10% is too high. We need to get that down. And that's the sort of thing that we are trying to address by increasing footfall. And if we increase footfall, there will be increased demand. And I believe we should see that in the form, therefore, of more retailers setting up shop in the top of the town. You're quite right to reference, as Councillor Parker did, that there have been plans before. And that is absolutely right. It's a shame that in 2004, when we weren't in administration, if it was 10 years ago or whatever, we weren't in administration then, it's a shame those weren't acted upon. But I'm committed to ensure, and I believe this administration is committed to ensure, that this happens. The leader set about taking forward the top of the town as a key council priority in the council plan that has been agreed, 2013 to 2017. That's what we're setting out to do. You're quite right to set out that you want something to happen. Me too.
And it's a shame really that the incoming administration back then didn't choose to carry on the work really. So that's one point. Can I just say quite clearly that it has taken 8 years to get to this point, but it's absolutely critical that you take the community with you. It would be foolish to go full hell into this without taking the residents and their ward councillors with you on this journey. And we, looking on from Morden, looking on from all the wards that surround the town centre, also share their concerns, and we support them in what they've said this evening. I'm sure I will support what Councillor Parker is about to say as well. So So I really do trust that you listen to what we're saying and not simply brush it under the carpet.
Well, Councillor Harvey is right to second guess me that, of course, as part of any future plans for any development, there would be appropriate consultation. This is really setting out a vision, but as I've said repeatedly tonight, we're not creating any detailed proposals here and now. What we're setting out is we want to try and achieve something better for Basingstoke, and I think that that's something we can all agree on as a concept. What comes later is the detailed work, prior to planning, but from a property owner, then through to planning, and then we see the development that our town wants and needs. I believe that we can do better, and this concept is the beginning of that.
Thank you. Could we have Councillor Parker in?
Thank you, Leader. I support the principle of regeneration of the top of town, but instead of pushing forward to complete small projects, the Cabinet member has been too ambitious with his grandiose major schemes that will need sizable, separate funding and take years to complete. Councillor Jayawardena, in his opening statement this evening, and the statement embedded in his report to Cabinet tonight, quotes, "Basingstoke's town centre belongs to all of North Hampshire. It is where residents from across the borough and beyond meet, eat, shop and more." Astonishingly, he has ignored residents living in the town centre, and that is evident throughout the master plan. Little thought given to residents living in the town centre, despite one of the vision's objectives being to encourage more residential occupancy. But we have been here before. For far too long, residents of New Road have had to and still continue to live with the uncertainty of the design of buildings proposed for Central Car Park. This uncertainty is being introduced to residents of Southern Road and those newly moved into the McCarthy and Stone complex in New Road, with the threat of a multi-storey car park. To better understand the anxiety for all these residents, the report states the concept sets out an exciting and inspirational vision for the future of the top of town over a 20-year frame. I question the need for a multi-storey car park in New Road. A petition has been received from residents of McCarthy and Stone objecting to the proposed multi-storey car park. The officer's response states, "There are no flats in Emma Court which solely have an outlook onto Southern Road car park. The vast majority of individual rooms which look out onto the car park also have a double aspect in other directions." Well, all I can say is welcome to Basingstoke, but the view might not be too good from one of your windows, but you've got another. In the interest of current and future residents of the town centre, this decision should not be agreed tonight.
Well, I'm pleased that Councillor Parker supports the principle of the concept as a whole. I recognise the concerns he outlines. Those are concerns that have been received from some in the public consultation. Councillor Parker said that I personally was being too ambitious here. Well, I believe we need ambition to take our town forward. Basingstoke can do better, and this is the start of ensuring that the top of the town does better, much like the council has enabled on a cross-party basis with Festival Place and the Malls. I was very pleased that broadly we had a very good cross-party consensus at EPP, the Economic Prosperity and Performance Scrutiny Committee, where it was decided that actually this concept really did have merit. It's not too ambitious to want better for your town. I believe that we need to see change, and change will mean that residents, workers, owners of businesses and others will see that change too. It's right that we consult with residents, it's right that we consult with others too, and we will continue to do that through the process to ensure, as best we can, that everyone is brought in to the future of our town centre. You can either do nothing and watch our town decline, or you can do something, and we've set out short, medium and long-term measures that we as an administration want to take forward to ensure that the top of the town remains and grows as a thriving heart to our town. I believe that that's the right decision for Basingstoke. Quite what the detail of that is a matter to be decided at a future moment. What we're deciding now is that we are committed to taking the top of the town forward, not allowing it to die.
Supplementary?
Chair, I have many, but I know it's not that type of meeting, so I'd like to ask your indulgence if I could ask one specific question and then make a subsequent observation. What I'd like to ask is, in view of previous documents, previous attempts that I have made to ensure that through the thread of the visions that we've had, numerous that they've been, central area vision, top of town vision, the public realm vision, that there will be included some attempt to ensure that there's reference made to the need to give concern towards the livability of existing residents in the town centre. I would ask if that could be an undertaking.
I will certainly undertake to ensure that everyone is consulted, and it's important that all of the needs, desires and indeed experiences of residents, traders and others are taken into account.
Just a quickie then, I just hope that consultation will be listened to, that's all. Chair, I'd like just to refer to, if I may, on the multi-storey car park point. I'm referring to a document, August 2013, headed Public Realm Guidance. And that on page 8 states, under top of the town, opportunities. Car parks within this area would benefit from improvements, including planting to provide softening and shade and improved visual amenity, together with pedestrian walkways and signage. I would like to ask the Cabinet Member how, since August 2013, in March 2014, we've moved from that concept to the proposals for a multi-storey car park.
That's a very fair point to call out the public realm guidance. 2 points on that. First, that is public realm guidance. It was set out prior to a concept being devised. There is nothing wrong with saying that the existing state of play can be improved. Indeed, I believe that that's right. But what we're setting out is a 20-year vision for the top of the town. And in 20 years, there will, in my view, be the need to see some change. And that means that if we are to create the right economic environment, if we're to keep or increase the amount of car parking, we will need to see change in terms of the type of car parking. That public realm guidance doesn't cover that. That covers the here and now. We're setting out a 20-year journey. I believe that that's the right thing to do, because we've got to have the interests of our town for the future in mind when we're taking decisions tonight, not just here and now.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Right, members. Councillor Golding.
Thank you, Leader. I'd like to just comment briefly. Councillor Gavin James encouraged us, I think I got his words more or less right, to put off longer term and more ambitious projects. I hope he really didn't mean that, but if he does, I fundamentally disagree with him. There's been a lot of reminiscing. There's been a lot of.
Can we have some order, please?
There's been a
Councillor James, that is not the way one behaves in council meetings, as you know. Well, would you please be quiet?
There's been a lot of reminiscing about the central area vision, and I can't quite remember how old it was, but it was certainly before I was a councillor and before the Conservatives administration. But I think it's sad that the members of the two parties who did create that vision seem to have conveniently forgotten that it included a multi-storey car park between New Road and Southern Road. And this is not a decision that's been emphasised. This is a vision for the future. There will be a lot more work on the detail. But it is a vision that is substantially different from the earlier central area vision, because it provides for what I would put in my lay words as a clear link between Festival Place and the top of town to encourage shoppers to go from one to the other, what the consultants call a more welcoming transition to enhance permeability. I think that's a very vital new ingredient of this, and I think it's absolutely right that we continue work on something that ambitious and long-term, and I support this concept master plan.
Thank you. Anybody else wishes to? No, two people. I think ladies first.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Giordino, I would just like to say, having listened to what's been said, and I'm sure you will do this, I understand what you're saying in the concept here, but I do think you need to listen to the people and you need to take this forward with the community. I think that's very important. You may build a multi-storey car park for the benefit of Basingstoke, but people have to live. Shoppers come and go, but the people of the area are there and they will live there. And you must take into consideration, and I think with what is being said in the 21st century, that we do listen and we work, especially I would do as a ward councillor, to the residents and bring them in, and a lot of communication when we are planning for the top of the town.
Councillor Raphael?
Well, I'd like to congratulate Councillor Giordino in bringing this forward. It's clear that all members of this council think this is far too long. We've taken, and previous administration have taken, to getting the top of town looked at and improved. I'd like to congratulate him, and in particular the leading officer, Mr. Bradfield, on generating a sense of enthusiasm as to what we can do rather than what we can't do, and for putting a range of options forward for consultation. And that enthusiasm has been greeted and been welcomed by all members of council, and I've been pleased to see them engaging in the process. It's absolutely right, as Councillor Ossleton's just said, that we listen to the existing residents of the centre of the town, but we also have to bear in mind that when we have to make an important decision, there are going to be compromises. What those compromises are, we don't know at this stage, but there will need to be compromises because, as we know, from those who've been around on this council for some time, it's because there needs to be an important decision made as to what we do about car parking that nothing's ever been achieved before. And so at some point, that's got to be decided upon. Now, whether it's this car park or a different car park in a different location will be determined on a future occasion. But to suddenly turn around from all the constructive discussion we've had, and I say this to some of those who have spoken tonight, who have been very constructive and helpful, some of whom have been representing their ward members, some don't have ward members that close, but still been very constructive, and suddenly change the tone tonight, just makes me wonder, is it because there's an election coming? It's just not helpful, because the enthusiasm is what we want to capitalise upon, so that more good ideas come to the fore, not the negative. Because it's the negative that actually results in no one doing anything and everyone saying, oh, you haven't done anything and you should have done what the last vision did. Well, that's a complete load of rubbish. The last vision was rejected because when we looked at the design, which we thought was poor, it seemed to us as it was turning things back by about 20 years in terms of the design concepts of false building fronts on New Road and that we see in other towns that were developed in the 1980s. And we'd rejected, we didn't like it. And because it was rejected, the whole enthusiasm disappeared from the whole project. And that's why I say that it's important that we have constructive criticism, which we're getting. But at the same time, we have to keep the enthusiasm going for what we want to achieve and keep the focus on that. So perhaps members could bear that in mind. But I would just like to say that I support what's being put forward.
Nobody else, Councillor Jarwood, would like to sum up?
Thank you, Leader. I thank all members, residents and indeed colleagues of the Cabinet for their comments to deal with the very important point that's been made by a number of members. As I said, as I will continue to say, as I'll repeat right now, we will of course consult with all residents, traders and others in taking forward any of our plans, as we do with any of the projects on this council. As a public authority, that's the right thing to do. But at the same time, I welcome comments from members, Councillor Rafael, who spoke last, saying that we have to make compromises, we have to take important decisions to ensure that the top of the town, and indeed the whole of Basingstoke town, doesn't get left behind, that we do ensure economic vitality and more jobs for the future. It's important that we continue to do that. And therefore, I stand by this paper and I do move.
Right. I would just add, this really has gone on for ages and ages and ages. From people who were involved in this council long before I became involved in this council tell me that this was in discussion 20, 30 years ago, that things were not in the way they should be. And I haven't come across anybody, either inside or outside the council, that doesn't agree that something needs to be done. Standing still is not an option. I think what has been put forward here as a result of a lot of consultation is very widely supported, the concept of doing something and getting an improvement. I would love to see a vibrant top of the town with people living and enjoying living in that area. And I think it is a very reasonable point to make that the people who enjoy living there should be the existing residents and also the new residents that come in. But I've lived in lots of town centres over many years now in different places, and they are great places to be when they work and when they thrive. That's what I think this vision sets out to achieve. I'm sure there will be lots of changes and lots of modifications along the way, and things will move from here to there. But you have to have some vision of where you want to go if you're ever going to stand any chance of getting there. I'm afraid that we can't go on putting things off for further consultation and for further discussion about the principles. We've got beyond that stage. We have to now start to talk about the practicalities of the way that you can achieve what you want to achieve. Whether that is a multi-storey car park or not, I have no idea. That, I think, will come out of further development work. But the one thing that I am absolutely certain of is that we've all got to try and put aside petty arguments and work together on it, because it's too important to leave it not done. We cannot afford to be here in another 10 years' time saying, I wish somebody had done something about the top of the town. And it's for that reason that I would support this paper. Members, are you agreed? Yeah. Okay. Thank you all very much. And thank you to the participants in that. I'm now proposing that we go to an urgency item. This is the paper circulated late, I'm afraid, because on temporary accommodation for homeless households. It is brought under the urgency procedure because it is important that we get this to full council as soon as possible, so that the investment can be triggered and that they can get on with dealing with this in providing the accommodation that the paper puts forward. And that's why it was brought late, I'm afraid, because we only reached agreement late on with our partners, Sentinel, in doing this. Councillor Golding, would you like to introduce it?
Thank you, Leader. The background to this is that in happier times, when there was plenty of house building and plenty of new affordable housing becoming available, we had comparatively easy to meet our duties to people who were statutory duties to people who are homeless, and to find them long-term accommodation straight away. In the last year or two, with the severe shortage of new housing, we've had to put far too many people in bed and breakfast. It's expensive and it's bad for the families concerned. This proposal would spend what is left of the Affordable Housing Reserve in the sum of 634,000 to enable Sentinel Housing to buy about 17 existing properties, which can be done fairly quickly. They've shown fairly recently that they can buy up houses on the market and get them into use as social housing very quickly. The idea is that we would put in about £37,000 per property out of a typical cost of 165,000. So we're only putting in about 23% of the cost of each property. They will be funding the rest. Those houses will be available specifically for temporary accommodation. Families that we would otherwise have to put in bed and breakfast will be put in those houses. And it's a win-win as well, because we've agreed with Sentinel that this will be for a period of time, that in about up to 10 years' time, the houses can be sold. If they've gone up in value, we will get our proportionate share of the value back, as well as the original amount we've put in. So I commend this. It's, as the leader said, we need to press on with it. If we can get it to full council later this month and approved, then Sentinel can get on with buying the houses while we're busy running an election campaign, and that's all to the good. So I commend this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Golding. We have one speaker on this, Councillor Parker. Terribly sorry, I nearly forgot you there. For a moment.
Thank you, Chair. Don't worry, I wouldn't have let you do that. Leave, I really just didn't want this evening to go by without speaking to this paper, and with just to say that I totally support the proposals, and I'm pleased to see that this is something that's going to come to fruition. And I'm sure as a result of complicated and detailed, lengthy negotiations by the portfolio holder, and I compliment him on achieving that result. And I'm not going to stray into any real negative comment, other than to say that I do hope that this is necessarily going to be the start of other initiatives that we can probably come here again and support, because of the alarming rise in the number of homeless in the last 12 months and the fear of that being a continued trend. So I would just wanted to take time to say congratulations, and I fully support the proposals.
Thank you. I would just say thank you for the thank yous, and I would pay tribute to the officers who've done most of the work. Just to say on your request that this will be the start of other initiatives, it can't quite do that, because we've already put about £250,000 into Sentinel to purchase properties for letting, not for temporary accommodation, but people who wanted to downsize because of the changes to housing benefit. We have also agreed the money for investment with and the use of Chinham House for more social accommodation. So it won't be the start of something, but I hope there will be more beyond this. And we have committed, and I forgot to say it when I was introducing it, that September or thereabouts, we will see how this has been going. And if it's been going well, we will consider coming back to council for authority for more spending on this. So yes, it's part of a process, and I am grateful for the support. Thank you.
Yes, I really was thinking in terms of, I appreciate funding, the limits on funding in regard to this type of arrangement. I'm thinking that hopefully necessity will cause us to look at some other way of ensuring that we are able to have a local way of resolving this issue, as opposed to using bed and breakfast often outside of the borough. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, speakers, Councillor Giles.
Thank you, Leader. I'd commend Councillor Golding and his officers on delivering this paper to us this evening. This demonstrates that through careful management of the council's assets and ensuring that we maintain the reserves for appropriate purposes, for example, the affordable housing reserve that we created in 2010, we can deliver long-term benefits to our residents. This is a revolving fund that could ensure considerable benefit in the years ahead. I'm pleased that it not only resolves short-term problems that some of our residents may be facing, but also ensures that the council will share in a capital uplift of purchase price in the future, so that we can continue to put the council's resources, taxpayers' resources, to good use for the benefit of all residents. I fully support the paper.
If there's nobody else, do you want to sum up, or have you said everything you want to say?
Really to say, I recommend the recommendation to Cabinet.
Thanks very much. Let me just add then at the end, I mean, this has been, I recognise, a long time coming. It has taken a lot of hard work to get where we are. And it's a very good outcome from all that hard work that officers have put in. So I thank them for it, and Councillor Golding as well. I do hope that we get to September and actually find that it has been very successful and that we can do more, because it certainly, we have a problem with which we need to deal, though one would hope that in the not too distant future, the general recovery in the economy will tend to reduce the problem that we're trying to tackle in this situation. But it is appropriate that we should provide some form of a safety net there to help those who do find themselves in difficult situations, and that's what this does. I think we're probably all agreed on this, aren't we? It's a good thing. We now come then to, I think, was there one other small item on the agenda somewhere? Yes, the suggested changes to Basingstoke and Dean pre-submission local plan.
Thank you, Leader. Can I just...
Sorry, before you start, I forgot that we have to now lose half of our membership, well, two of them anyway, who are members of the many, for those who are watching avidly at home, or in the audience, that they are members of the Many Executive Committee and therefore unable to participate in this part of the debate. And so they go off into the wide blue London.
Well, thank you, Leader. I note that for this most important issue, the representatives from the other political parties have all gone, when in fact they'll probably all want to say something about it next week. I will just briefly summarise where we are. We have had a very successful discussion at the Planning and Infrastructure Overview and Scrutiny Committee over the last few months. I want to thank all members from all the political parties for their input. I have listened to their representations and I have made changes. Those changes are in this supplementary document, not the actual Cabinet papers, because they have to be published beforehand. And the plan keeps evolving, and I keep having to take account of the representations that have been made. I just want to focus on one or two, I think it's two further changes to what is actually in the policies, and this in particular deals with the many down policy, which is SS 3.10, and in particular on page 47 of 174 in the draft for public consultation. I think it's right that in where it says in paragraph now, it's called M, where it says include the provision of a road through the land allocated for housing, the words should be added from the A339 to the B3400. In seeking clarity to distinguish what might be a western bypass from the road that was going through from the A339 to the B3400, it seemed to have got lost in the way, and I think it should come back in. So it should read, include the provision of a road through the land allocated for housing from the A339 to the B3400, linking the proposed housing to the existing communities and to provide the ability to connect to potential future sites to the south, with the location of the road being determined through the master planning process. Regard should be had to the optimum location for this road to cross the railway line or lines. And then the paragraph O remains as it is. Sorry, paragraph N remains as it is. And I should just point out, because it perhaps isn't clear to members, that I have amended the draft infrastructure delivery plan at paragraph 11.23 to say work will be undertaken with Hampshire County Council during the plan period to explore the requirement for a western bypass for Basingstoke that would link the A339 to junction 7 of the M3 motorway. Very sensibly, that suggestion was put forward by the Planning Infrastructure Committee. And in relation to paragraph O, as it now is, because it's for those who are watching this, all the lettering keeps changing, but it's paragraph O to do with the vehicular access. What has been brought to my attention is something rather obvious, that the previous plan tried to minimise vehicular access. This draft tries to maximise it, and I think that what should happen is it should effectively be left to the master planning to decide what to do, based upon the best connections to the existing communities and based upon the layout of the site as it comes forward. So I think what it should say is, instead of it saying ensure that vehicular access is provided to and from the development via the road through the land allocated for housing and Roman Way and Roman Road in order to maximise the permeability of the site with the implementation of appropriate traffic management measures to prevent running through existing communities. It should just say provide vehicular access to and from the site with the implementation of appropriate traffic management measures to prevent running through existing communities. In other words, it's far simpler. It doesn't put a tilt one way or the other and allows the landowner to plan it appropriately, taking with obviously taking account of the concerns of the existing community to the pressure that an increase in traffic might have upon them. So those are my two amendments, and apart from that, I would like to recommend this to Cabinet.
Thank you. Now then, who wishes to speak first? Councillor Golding?
Thank you, Leader. I am going to vote against this revised draft plan. I voted against the version that we considered in July 2013, as I did not think that it would be found sound at any examination in public. In certain key respects, this version is worse. First, there is the proposal for a substantial westward extension of the area of Manydown allocated for development through to 2029, so that it extends all the way down to the Wootton St Lawrence Road. That takes the development over the ridge that crosses the B3400 and would have a, quote, substantial adverse impact on the character of the adjoining countryside, unquote, in the way identified by the planning inspector at the last local plan inquiry. It would also take development within 300 metres of the Oakley built-up area, which extends east along the B3400 outside the existing settlement policy boundary. If this extension goes ahead, there will be an almost continuous built-up area from Oakley to Basingstoke, which will be contrary to the strategic gap policy. Paragraph 6.13 of this draft plan says that, quote, when travelling through a strategic gap, a traveller should have a clear sense of having left the first settlement, having travelled through an undeveloped area, and then entered the second settlement. That sense, unquote, that sense would be completely destroyed by building so close to Oakley, adjacent to the B3400. There is no evidence to justify this westward extension other than the landowners would like it to happen, and that is not a valid planning reason. The landowners did not put forward any evidence in support of the extension when they responded during last summer's local plan consultation, and so far as I can see, officers have not explained the justification for this change in either of the reports to P&I or the report to this Cabinet. Indeed, it is only mentioned indirectly in Appendix 3 of the report we have before us tonight. All the evidence indicates that there is plenty of room for 3,400 dwellings without crossing the ridgeline, even allowing for the need for multiple outlets and access points. It follows that allocating some of the best and most versatile agricultural land when it is not needed in the period to 2029 is contrary to paragraph 112 of the National Planning Policy Framework and likely to render the plan unsound. Second, there is the continued inclusion of the parcel of Manydown south of the railway line and north of Pack Lane. The Highways Authority responded to the last consultation saying that they would object to development south of the railway line on the grounds of highway safety. The landowners said they weren't even promoting it in the period through to 2029, and yet it's still there. We do have a new policy which was SS3310T, though the T may have changed now, which says that development on this parcel will be limited to a yield of approximately 300 units unless workable transport mitigation measures can be demonstrated to support a higher yield. However, there is as yet no evidence that even the 300 houses mentioned in that policy could be developed without causing a severe adverse impact on the local highway network. I think I have seen a statement somewhere that indicates that officers may have had discussions with the Highway Authority with the implication that the authority would withdraw the objection if the yield was limited to 300 houses, but I've been unable to find that again, and so far there does not seem to be any publicly available evidence on that point. Accordingly, as there is no basis for including that parcel of land in the allocation up to 2029, if it is included, the local plan is likely to be found unsound. Third, and very briefly, there is the continued inclusion of the golf course site. At numerous meetings and in responses to last summer's local plan consultation, Dunmer Parish Council, various residents and myself have all explained in detailed planning terms why this allocation does not seem to fit the tests in the NPPF. Residents and the Parish Council made further representations at P&I on the 5th of March, yet the issue has not been discussed in any detail at P&I or elsewhere. It doesn't feature in the supplementary report following P&I. There's not been any statement from officers which responds to the points raised and explains in detail why the site is considered to be appropriate. So I'm not persuaded that inclusion of the golf course is the most appropriate strategy. Accordingly, it is not consistent with paragraph 182 of the NPPF, and this aspect of the plan is likely to be found unsound at the examination in public. I am grateful to the portfolio holder for agreeing to put back the words from the A339 to the B3400, which has saved half a page of A4. In closing, as I said in July, I think we are close to having a local plan that is likely to be found sound at the examination in public, but we are not there yet. So I shall vote against.
Councillor Aegis.
Thank you, Leader. I would just like to start by saying that this council needs a local plan. Without one, we have very little say on what houses we see being built in our borough or where those houses are built. As we have no plan at present, this is why Kennel Farm has been allowed on appeal, and why without a local plan we have very little say in what facilities our borough sees, where roads will or won't be built. Whether we like it or not, we are a growing borough. We have young families needing new homes here, and we're lucky enough to have fantastic local businesses growing all the time too. With those growing families and thriving local businesses, we have a housing need, and not to build is not an option. No government of any colour would ever allow such an option. Houses will be built. We should not be leaving it to a free-for-all from developers or a decision by the planning inspector with no input from us at all. What I believe is most important is that we fight at each and every stage to ensure that the correct infrastructure is put in place so that any negative impact for our residents from building are mitigated. And in fact, the status quo is improved upon. I want to work with local associations to ensure my residents and the residents of the borough can see benefits from the houses being built. My position on development affecting Kempshott is that any new housing must preserve the quality of life for my residents. Although it is not directly referenced, I would like to take this opportunity to say that Old Down is an important part of the local green infrastructure and as such deserves our protection, and currently I would oppose any plans for a road to be put through Old Down. I want to make clear that I will work with all the groups such as SWAG, the Kempshott Residents Association and individual residents in making sure development is sustainable and the right infrastructure is put in place. We need to get the plan to the inspector so the real debate can begin, and to get it to the inspector, the plan, although it may not be perfect, must be approved.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Donnell.
Thank you, Leader. First of all, could I ask the portfolio member just to read out his amended version of paragraph O?
Provide vehicle access to and from the site with the implementation of appropriate traffic management measures to prevent rat running through existing communities. And then it carries on, obviously, in addition.
Thank you. My shorthand skills are not as good as the journalists here, so I did want to get that right. First of all, Leader, can I congratulate the portfolio member for his sheer hard work and energy in bringing this through in a very constrained timescale. It is, of course, incredibly important that we have a local plan, not just to save that one or two houses that may be built without a plan in rural wards, but also to have the correct vision for the development of this borough in total, and particularly the town, which is of course taking the greater share and greater than its population share of our future house building. I know there are some political parties in this council that believe that targets and therefore 5-year land supplies and therefore local plans are irrelevant. I disagree with that, and I think our residents will disagree with that. So we do need a plan. However, that plan needs to be the right plan. I agree with Councillor Golding. I think we are very close to having the right plan. However, there is work that we still need to do from it. I want to get local now and talk around the site policy plans that affect most my ward of Winklebury. Manydown is an incredibly contentious issue in this chamber, and the pendulum swings. Unfortunately, I feel the pendulum will swing to let's sweat the asset. And we do need to still keep, as Councillor Parker said earlier today, look at the rights and the quality of life of the residents who live nearby that. Yes, it is a borough asset, however, it is also on people's next doors. I would have voted against this plan without a doubt, with the traffic management policy as laid out in paragraph 0 before the portfolio member modified it. And let me explain why. That policy would have pushed most of the traffic movements from Manydown through residential streets. And we're not talking large thoroughfares here, we're talking residential streets that are narrower than the High Street of Upton Gray or narrower than the High Street of East Woody. These are narrow residential streets in the Clark Estate. So I'm very, very pleased that the portfolio member has seen sense and taken it and changed it to provide vehicular access to and from the development with the implementation of appropriate traffic management measures to prevent rat running through existing communities. Let's be very clear, you'll only be able to exit Manydown onto 3 roads. Irrespective of link roads, you'll exit onto the A339, the B3400 or the Roman Road. The traffic management plan and the traffic study says that there will be blocks of the Aldermaston roundabout which will block the A339, and that can only be helped by people changing their route. The roundabout at the end of the Roman Road and the B3400, the plan is to make a dual entry on it. They forgot that it goes immediately under a single entry under a railway immediately afterwards. The greatest fear of the residents of Winklebury is that you will have the bulk of the traffic from the Manydown development leading through their residential streets, past schools, past houses, past nursing homes. And frankly, this is unacceptable and it's bad planning. So I'm very pleased that that has been changed. I'm disappointed that we've already made this decision in this council that we're going to put the Gypsy and Traveller site on Manydown. I think it is, I do not understand the logic that we attach it to one site but not all the other sites that could potentially house that site. We are only mentioning it on Manydown, not on others. And I would expect that the landowner would be coming back on this in order to push back on that. I'm disappointed that yet again, however, I do understand that this is a planning concept, that protection can be given for views from a country, so the cows are protected in what they look at, but unfortunately you're not allowed to give protection for what people who live in towns look at. It is disappointing that some of the elements have been retracted about respecting the landscape as currently viewed from Winklebury in old paragraph J, new paragraph I, and I think this is a retrograde step. But I do think this policy and this plan is at a stage that we do need to go to consultation. So I will not vote against. Depending on the responses from the portfolio holder, I will decide to abstain or vote for. I do want to say one last thing, Leader. It's very clear from the response to the local plan, and also from my conversations with my residents, that frankly the residents of Winklebury and of Buckskin, and I believe to some extent Oakley, have frankly lost confidence in this council. They've lost confidence that we are able and capable of playing both the planning policy and the development policy elements of it. I've had numerous conversations in the last 6 months where residents have said, and these are engaged residents who understand the planning system, who view that the best chance for them to be heard, both by this council and particularly the councillors who make the decision, is at the examination in public. They unfortunately do believe that there is a modus operandi within this council of putting all the development on one site. And certainly that is the stated position of some of our fellow councillors from other groups. I know it's not, and let me make this clear, it is not the position of the leader or the portfolio member for planning. But I would encourage my residents in Winklebury to engage in this second consultation. I think it is always positive for them to engage in it, and it is worthwhile for them to do it. We are in a situation, because of the way we bought the land and the contracts that we signed, that we're in an invidious situation of both having to play the referee and also be a development player. I wish that had never happened. But I feel confident that we can rise to that challenge, but more importantly be seen to rise to that challenge. Unfortunately, the residents to the west of Basingstoke do not believe we have risen to that challenge at the moment. I would encourage them again to engage within the consultation process. Leader, I've spoken enough tonight. We are getting a local plan that is the right way forward. We're getting a local plan that does need to continue to evolve. We're getting a local plan that does need to take adherence to what the views of local communities are. We've heard a lot tonight about taking the view of local communities in the town centre. We also need to take the views of local communities around the major development areas going forward. I have confidence the cabinet member for planning will do that in developing his policies.
Thank you very much. Before I ask Councillor Raphael to sum up, I'll just add my 2 pence. Firstly, a minor correction. Before we get letters of complaint from the residents of Eastwoody, Eastwoody doesn't have a high street. And we don't even have one of those. But I tell you what we do have, however, in Eastwoody, is a housing development of nearly 50 houses, which has been granted because there was no local plan in place. And the one thing which I think all the residents of Eastwoody are actually vehemently in favour of is getting a local plan as quickly as possible to make sure that this does not continue. In any local plan is going to be very broadly based. It covers such a multitude of areas, of aspects, that you are never going to find a plan with which everybody is 100% in accordance. I could find things that I would actually like to suggest modifications to going through it, but I think it has to be the overall balance that one looks at, and the necessity to have one which is the paramount importance. I agree, we don't have anything for the sake of having something, because something could be worse than nothing in some circumstances. But this has been through nearly a year and a half of detailed discussion at various lengths. Nobody is ever going to win all of their points, I'm afraid. I think probably the balance, however, is just about right. There is still this is only, I would just repeat, a draft for consultation. There is still the opportunity for further revisions if strong arguments come forward. But I really do want to see this signed off and off to the inspector, so that the various points which have been made tonight and will no doubt be made at other times can be tested in the EIP. But until and unless we get to that stage, we will never get near to a final outcome, and that is the most important thing. End of speech. Councillor Raffel.
Well, can I just respond to some of the things that have been said? Firstly, can I respond to what Councillor Golding has said? It's my view that if we were to take out the area of land that he's suggesting, that's the hatched area on the plan, on map 1A, it's my view the landowner would be able to make a compelling case for putting the piece of land back in if it improved the overall layout of the site, and undoubtedly that's what they would say. And so I do not think it's something that was achievable, and I think it would be regarded as unsound to take it out when they're requesting putting it in, rather than it's unsound to put it in. I think he's looking at the thing the wrong way round. Can I respond to what Councillor Donnell says? I have a lot of sympathy and appreciate fully what he has had to cope with, the change in position of this council, and his residents undoubtedly are feeling shock, and no doubt expecting even more shock once the development takes place. He will know, and he has been very realistic about it, and that this is something that is being experienced by a number of communities around the borough, to a greater or lesser extent, depending on where you are and the size of the existing communities. He will also know, and he has very sensibly said this tonight, that we have to have a local plan in place, and there's got to be compromises. And unfortunately, one of those compromises is that the area of land that's closest to his ward is going to be built upon, and he has had to accept that. We have made amendments to the policy M, and I'm grateful that he feels that that's an improvement. I made it clear on a previous occasion that Manydown is not West Winklebury, and I make it clear again tonight, it won't be. But what Manydown will be, if we achieve what we want to achieve with it, will be an area that the people of Winklebury will perhaps have pleasure in visiting if they choose to do so. And they'll have access to do so if either by road or by foot or by bicycle, should they choose to do so. And that's the importance of that particular policy. But at the same time, I do take on board the very real pressures that there will be on the transport network all around the west of Basingstoke. Pressures that I feel that perhaps won't ever be relieved until such time as we perhaps consider the imposition of a western bypass in many years to come. But I would like to say that taking all of that into account, I'd like to recommend to Cabinet that the draft plan goes to full council.
Thank you. Members, those in favour? Anybody against? One against. So, there we are. Excellent. Then can we just move to item 14, please, which is matters dealt with by portfolio holders under delegated powers. This is for noting, and I'm very pleased to note the use of section 106 contributions to fund sporting facilities in Whitchurch and East Woody. Thank you. Cabinet member for partnerships. Noted? Noted, good. In which case the meeting is now terminated at almost 8 o'clock. Thank you.